Hey there, and welcome to the Indie Made Business Podcast. I'm your host, Cheryl Ham, a former corporate sales girl who traded in the 9-to-5 grind for the creative freedom of running my own 7-figure hand-dyed yarn and subscription box business. In the process, I learned that when you're the one making the products you sell, the path to growth looks a little different. But that's what makes being a creative business owner so unique. You've got to find a way to balance your craft, your business goals, and the life you want to create. So on this podcast, we're rolling up our sleeves and diving into real, actionable strategies that will help you build a business that gives you more freedom, whether that's more time, more income, or simply the ability to do what you love on your own terms. So get comfy, grab your favorite drink, and let's get into it. Today we're tackling a topic that so many creatives struggle with, and that's asking for the sale. If you're a maker, artist, or creative entrepreneur, chances are you love the process of creating, but feel a little icky when it comes to selling. Maybe you worry that you're bothering people, or you assume that they'll just buy it if they're interested without you having to ask. I get it. Selling can feel uncomfortable. And if you're not used to it, that's completely normal. But here's the thing. Discomfort doesn't mean bad. As business owners, we need to get comfortable feeling a little uncomfortable. I know this firsthand because before I retired from corporate, I spent nearly 15 years in sales. And let me tell you, even for the pros, selling isn't always second nature. It's a skill that takes practice. But once you learn how to ask for the sale in a way that feels natural and authentic, everything changes. To help me dig into this, I'm joined by the amazing Kari Capone from The Spinning Hand. Kari has built a thriving handmade business, and I know she's had her own journey with learning how to sell with confidence. Kari, welcome to the podcast. Can you start by sharing a little bit about yourself, what The Spinning Hand is, where you started, and where you're at today?
Thank you so much, Cheryl. It is awesome to be here. My name is Kari, and I'm the founder of The Spinning Hand. And I'm laughing as you're giving this introduction because before The Spinning Hand, before I worked in corporate, I had a cafe, and I was so afraid to ask for the sale. When someone would come in and spend a large amount of money on a latte or on gifts for other people, I would almost feel like, are you sure that you want to spend all this money?
Are you sure you want to do this? Are you okay?
Are you right? And you might not be surprised to learn that cafe did not last very long. It was about 2 years. And then I said, I need a job. I need to support myself and my son. So I did get a job and started to build The Spinning Hand while I was working a day job. I learned how to build my own website and I learned about online sales. And eventually in 2021, I was able to quit my day job and build The Spinning Hand full time. So, what we sell at The Spinning Hand is mainly learn to knit kits and knitting kits for people who have already gotten past that initial beginner stage and are ready to learn new skills. So, with each kit, we have subscriptions and a la carte. You can learn something new with each kit that you dive into.
I love that. I love what you do. I've always been a big fan of your business. And for everybody listening, why don't we talk a little bit about how we even met? Because I love this story. I love it for us.
I do too.
Right?
So,
Yeah, I didn't know that
so
you had a cafe either. So that's really interesting to learn.
yeah, yeah. And it was called Carrie's Cafe. And my son was 6 years old at the time. And he said to me, did you stay up all night thinking of that name, Ma?
I think it sounds very nice. It's very like Stars Hollow.
So it really was. It really was.
Yeah.
So Cheryl and I met through a mutual online coach. We were both in a training for it. Were you in Life Hack Boot Camp or was it
Yes.
something
I
else?
did the
Okay.
boot camp and then I did the coaching.
Yes. And I know it sounds so funny, the name of that boot camp, but it really helped me organize my ways of thinking and my time and my finances. And the coach said to me, there's this woman you have to meet. Her name is Cheryl, and she's in the yarn space, and you two have to meet.
I think we called each
Yes,
other and had a
yes.
weird, "Hi, I I don't know
It's so
you at all,
awkward.
but this person says we need to meet." He was our coach,
Yes.
so we were doing what we
Yes.
were told.
And then when I launched a subsequent collection of kits, you and I had a collaboration. And
Yes.
I'm going to talk about that a little later today because it has everything to do with asking for the sale. But then fast forward to, I think it was 2 years ago in June, we went to a subscription box conference
Yes, we did.
and we finally were able to meet in person.
Yes, it was so wonderful.
It was amazing. It
It
really
really
was.
was, it really was, and you helped me with Facebook ads.
Yes.
All right, I love everything about your business. Like I said, I always love talking to you, and that's why I wanted to bring you on as my very first guest on the podcast. And we talked a bit in advance about what topics we might want to explore, right? And I think you brought up this topic about selling. And instantly I was like, oh, yes, that's perfect. Because selling is not only something that's a strategy, but it's also like a little therapy session.
Yes.
Because selling is a
Mindset.
lot of in your feels. There's a lot of feelings around it. I was in sales for 16
Right.
years. I grew my business in tandem, but it was only the last few years that was happening. But when I started in sales, I had no sales experience and it was very uncomfortable for me then. And even though it's been so long, I can still remember that discomfort.
Yes.
I would ask, I had the benefit of working in corporate, and people would tell me, this is what you need to do. You need to call this person and say these things. And I was like I cannot. No, ma'am. You want me to say what now? But I did know that I needed to listen to the people who had come before me and who were already successful. And if they were telling me to do this, then even though it felt like, oh, I don't want to, and I had that pit in my stomach, I did it anyway. And eventually it became something that I don't have an issue with. But when I started my business, at that point, I was pretty comfortable selling. So I would love to hear from you. What feelings have you ever had, like, wrapped up in sales when it comes to your business?
Oh, 100%. And I was thinking that it really came down to three different areas. One is the way that I was raised. We were middle class. That's an
Mhm.
aspirational way of saying it, but mom always hit the Kmart clearance racks and
Yep.
coupon clipping. And I was raised to squeeze pennies until they bled. And so that whatever relationship you have with money growing up, I think is definitely something to unpack. And so that's one part of it. The second part of it is finding your people. So it is so much easier to make the sale when you are preaching to the choir. And when you're first starting out, if you haven't had any sales yet, you literally have no idea what kind of people you might have some idea, but you're guessing still.
Yeah.
If you've had sales, then you can prove that your product works. Once you have repeat customers, that's when you can really say, okay, what is it about my product and these customers that is really gelling? And
Yes. Can I just interject something real quick? Something that I think a lot and I talk about a lot is courage over confidence. When we're first starting out and we don't have a lot of sales, we don't have confidence yet because confidence, people think, oh, I am either a confident person or I'm not a confident person. And if you have confidence, that means you just can walk into a room in any situation and you have confidence. But I disagree with that. I think confidence is a skill that you gain after you've had success. You get those sales and you gain a little confidence. You do a little
yeah,
better, you get more confidence. We don't just wake up and start a business and we are confident in everything we're doing. So, what we do need to have is courage, because the courage
yes,
is what gets us to launch that first product. It's what we do before we have the courage, before we see any result that anybody is going to care about us, like us, not laugh us off the internet, like all of those things, right?
yeah. And if you decide to sell merch with courage before confidence on it, I'm going to buy all that merch. That is so beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I want I want you to think about these salesy people that you've met in your life, and often they have so much confidence that it seems fake, it seems inauthentic. I was telling you before we started recording that I was just on jury duty, and I would say that the lawyers the way that they come across is just very aggressive. And let's be honest, especially as women, that kind of like blind self-confidence is not often rewarded.
Yeah.
And so I think you can ask for the sale. I know you can ask for the sale and be your authentic self by having that courage. And that energy comes through to the people on the other end, even if it's an email, and they say, "Oh, I, I'm hearing this message." You don't have to shout, "Bye, bye, bye." And you don't have to be a bro marketer, as I call
Mhm.
them,
Yep.
where it's flashy. It really, marketing and sales is about delivering a message. And really, for your people who want to buy your things, they are dying for you to tell them what's happening. What do you have going on? We can't wait. Take my money. Those are the people
Right.
that you are going to meet. Those people you are going to have, and I hope that you have 1,000 of them.
Yes, those people are out there for sure. They 100% are. And speaking of like us probably being about the same age, I think we grew up in a time where there was a lot of commission based salespeople. You would go into a store and you would encounter commission based salespeople, and they were not there because they cared about you, because they wanted the best for you. They were not a small business. We are small business owners, right? That's something we could wear on a t-shirt and it means something. We get to do things differently. We're not big corporate companies. We're not commission-based salespeople. We're not local car salesmen. And
Right.
I think what happens is we grow up in a time where we see that, and honestly, I don't really, we called it sales. I don't think it is sales. I think it was manipulation. We
Mm,
would have manipulation based selling where somebody's trying to talk us into a product at all costs, no matter if it's true, if it's going to be helpful, if we need it. None of that mattered. They were
yeah.
there to manipulate us into giving us their money, because then they would make a commission. And if you ever did that for a living, please know I am not trying to shame you. I just think it was a time. It was a time period where that was very common. And to be a good salesperson, it was almost like you had to set your person aside, whoever you were like in your heart, and then walk in onto the sales floor and be a different person, like that lawyer who's giving the opening statements or the closing
Right.
arguments, right? They're trying to convince somebody of something and make somebody see something their way. That's not the selling we're talking about. We're
Correct.
talking about selling that is helping the people who already want what you have, helping them to one, know it exists, helping them to support you when they already want to do that, and making their life easier by making them not have to hunt and peck and stalk your website just to know if you have something available, right? Like, it's
Right.
just different. It's a different mindset and it's a whole different type of selling.
I also wanted to mention that this goes side by side with really listening to your people. And I'm talking about your repeat customers, not just there's always one cranky person who will email you, and you can weigh that against your diehard customers. But if you are hearing something from your customers about, I love this, but I love this, but I wish this, it is important to listen to those things. And then if you can incorporate their feedback, and just to give an example, there's a subsection of my customers who are allergic to certain animal fibers. So I would love this kit, but can you provide it in cotton, plant fibers, that kind of thing? If you're able to do that, if you're able to provide a different color, a different size, even a different price point, and still stay true to your brand, and then you're able to sell that to people, you're going to have customers for life because they're like, oh my goodness, this person is actually thinking of me and listening to me. And that's something that a small business can do. We can be so nimble that corporate, it would take them so long to turn around that ship.
Yes, absolutely. There comes a point where I feel like it's a fine line, right? Because you can't listen to every single idea and suggestion and constantly be shifting your
No.
business if it's out of line with what you're doing. But if the suggestions you're getting, one, if you're getting them enough and they're in
Yeah.
line with what you want to do, then I think it makes sense. A personal example for me is that we recently, for our subscription box, we released, we call it our no frills. And so it's a subscription where you get
Yeah.
just the yarn. And people have been asking us for that for a very long time. And there was some logistical things, which is why it took us a while to release it. But we were getting enough requests for it that we worked really hard behind the scenes to make it happen. But then it allowed us to sell to the people that said, I don't want maybe this, or this is out of my budget, or whatever it is, right? And now we can say, we have this other option for you. But if we don't tell them about that, maybe we now have the most perfect product for them and they absolutely want it. But if we keep it to ourselves and don't now tell them it exists, we just
Right.
quietly release it into the world and hope that person that's perfect for us will find us. We're putting a lot on that customer to expect them to do all of this legwork to find us. It's almost like
Yeah.
we think we're doing a good thing, but in fact, we're putting a lot on our customer to make them do all of the work.
As business owners, we possibly think that our customers are thinking about us 10 times more than they really are, or
Right?
100 times more than they really are. And that also speaks to repetition, so that when you are asking for the sale, whether it's in an email or social media or a live video or on the phone or in person, you can ask for the sale 5 or 6 different times, and that won't be overwhelming to the customer. They'll maybe vaguely remember
Or
that
they
you.
may not even have heard it the first 4 times, because not
Absolutely.
everybody is hearing and opening every single thing that you send. So you might say something 5 times and they only heard it once, or maybe still not at all.
Still not at all, and it's not personal, and it's not about you, and you don't have to worry that someone will say, "Gosh, Carrie is she's always droning on, and it's so repetitive, and stop it already." And honestly, if that person does feel that way, they will unsubscribe from your email list, and that should make you happy. It should really make you happy, because it means that the people who are opening your emails really want to be there.
Yes.
So it is okay.
Yes, yes. Oh my goodness, I'm super excited to diving in about unsubscribes and we start talking about, like, selling via email.
I wanted to bring up one other option. You know,
Yeah.
we talked about having lower cost options, because we know that there will always be people who say, "I can't afford it." And I don't think that's true for a variety of reasons. However, um, one option that I tried this past holiday season that really worked well, and I did not expect it to, was I offered a much higher priced option. So, never in my wildest dreams did I think that anyone would purchase this kit. It was several $100s. It was pure cashmere. Each gift box was $15 just for the box inside the
Yeah.
packaging, top of the line. And yeah, no, I didn't expect anyone to actually buy it. And when they did, I was astonished and I said, "Oh, I have to buy more gift boxes because people are buying this." But you don't have our hands inside other people's wallets.
Right.
So, and this was something else I was thinking about, is that money is energy, and people want to spend their energy in the ways that nourish them and that feed them. And when we present our products like in a sort of an apologetic way, like I was doing at the cafe,
Yep.
that energy comes through, and then people are buying out of pity. Maybe not
Yeah.
consciously.
Or they're
Um,
saying, "If you don't even think it's good, then and you're selling it to me, then do I really wanna give you my money if you don't even think that it's really that great?"
yeah. But there have been so many kits, and the collaboration that we did is an example where I could not wait to show and tell people all about this and just spread the good word and look at this, it's amazing. That's it's irresistible. People want to be a part of that.
They do, and something you said earlier, while we're still talking about emotions and the feelings behind why we don't want to ask for the sale, something that you said was, stories we tell ourselves about money, and 2 things happen with that. 1, we feel what we feel, and then we project that onto our customers, and so something we have to remember is that they are not us, we are not them. Who am I to tell somebody else what they can or can't spend their money on? Like, how important do I think I am that I can say, I'm not going to release this because it's too expensive? I had this literally happen to me. I was trying to buy a car and it was during COVID. And so it was like on the phone. where before you would come down and see it in person, we did a lot of like phone talking. And the car salesman was like, I told him, well, I want this, I want that, and this is what I'm looking for. And he was like, oh, that's going to be like this much money. Like,
And it's so offensive.
I was so offended. It wasn't like he didn't misspeak. He was gently saying, I don't think you can afford this. He didn't know me. It's not like he had seen my bank account. He had no idea how much money I make. I absolutely could afford it, but also I don't need to explain to him once I buy it, my deal's with the bank. Like he has no whether I
Yes.
can afford it or not was none of his business, and I was so offended that I called the store manager and said, "I absolutely won't deal with the salesperson. If you wanna sell me a car, I need to talk to somebody else because that's 100% unacceptable that you're gonna
Well
tell me what I
done.
can and can't." That would be like you put that luxury kit out and then said, "No, my audience, they can't afford that." And I just think what you can afford is all relative, right? Like, you
Yes.
might say, I can afford this luxury kit because it's the one thing that I'm gonna spend my extra money on. Where
Yeah.
somebody else, maybe they make more money in their job, but they have it spread really thin. I just feel like it's not
Yeah.
up to us whether somebody can afford or whether they prioritize wanting to purchase our thing. It doesn't mean that we shouldn't still offer it to our audience because we're telling them what they can and can't buy.
I always think about Tiffany and Co. and you could apply to be a part of their email list and you could visit Tiffany's in the mall or and you can look at all the jewelry and all the beautiful things and maybe you could say to yourself I can't afford it. But you wouldn't say to Tiffany, you really need to stop advertising
Right.
because I can't afford your jewelry.
Yes.
That's
Luxury vehicles,
yes.
designer clothing. There's so many things in this world that I would say I can't afford. And really, I'm not prioritizing that over the other things. I would rather have these 10 things over here than maybe this one designer handbag. That's my personal choice. And it's not up to Coach to tell me whether or not I can buy their handbag. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
they're there and they're offering it, and I'm welcome to buy it should I choose to. And
Yes.
I feel like that's how it should be.
Oh, and I something else I thought of yesterday. I want all of us to become fabulously wealthy because and when I say us, female product-based business owners,
Yes.
that's we are such good stewards of wealth.
Mhm.
When money and wealth comes into our lives, we take care of ourselves, we take care of our families, we take care of our communities, we take care of other people. And sometimes when we talk about money stories, we think, oh, if I get rich, that means I'll be icky. And you think about these billionaires making
Right.
decisions that affect so many people, and it seems very thoughtless.
Right.
And that's the opposite of who we are. Rachel Rogers, in her book, We Should All Be Millionaires, makes that exact point that women and women of color and all sorts of disenfranchised groups should absolutely feel confident in accumulating wealth. And you know what? If you want to share that wealth and contribute to charity and build foundations, that's completely up to you.
Mhm.
But you should absolutely feel that there's nothing wrong and that it's completely appropriate for us to become wealthy and to move in this world as the large, wonderful beings that we are.
I agree with that. I feel if you want to have an impact on this world, the more that you're bringing in, the more you are actually able to have that impact. For me, that means the more I grew my business, I was able to hire employees who now make their weekly income based off of what I can pay them. And who you are as a person is not tied to how much money you make. So by us selling our products and making money and growing our businesses doesn't necessarily mean we turn into Ebenezer Scrooge and now we're just hoarding all of our pennies in a vault somewhere. You know what I mean? Like you can be that person and if that's who you are, like that's who you are, to each their own, but you get to decide who you are as a human being. And so just having money doesn't make you good or bad, right? Who you are as a person is what determines those things and what you do with that money and the impact you choose to have with it. And like you said, you could That could be giving to charity. That could be hiring employees. That could be promoting other small businesses or purchasing from other small businesses so that that money is going back into your community. There's all kinds of things you can do. But yes, it's true. We feel like if we're selling and it's all wrapped up in this weird greedy little troll who's like we have these images in our mind of what that looks like, and it's funny, but I feel like it's real. People we
It's so
really
normal.
yeah, it
It's
really
it's so
is.
normal, and it's everyone. I don't think there's a single human being, who is pathologically normal
Right?
within a normal range, who doesn't feel nervous and, like, all the time. It's 100% normal,
It
and
is.
so, again, courage over confidence, like what you
Yes.
say. Um, should we talk a little bit about some baby steps that people can take?
First, I wanna go back a little even further because we've talked about, like, emotion, but I wanna talk about what people currently do, because if you're a listener right now, I wanna know if I say some of these things, if it resonates with you. Do you see yourself in some of these actions? And if you do, the point is not to shame you or make you feel like, "Oh, like, you're bad and you're not doing it right." Instead, what I want you to think about is how much opportunity you currently have. So if you're doing some of these things, that means 2025 could be amazing for you because you have a huge opportunity to do some things differently and make some shifts that would have a really big impact. So here's what I see people doing a lot. And I'm guilty of some of these things too. So by no means have I never done these. I try not to do them so much now, but when I lose confidence, I could see me sometimes sliding into some of these things. So I think it's good to be aware of. And the first one is posting a pretty picture of your product with no real caption or just a kind of a look at this thing I made. And then it sits out there. There's no call to action. And we just hope someone will go, oh, that's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. Would you make me one? But we're hoping, right? We're not asking for anything. Or we rely on the if you build it, they will come mentality. And so that's thinking that just making amazing products will bring in the sales. So it goes hand in hand with the first one. You just think, well, if I make really amazing things, people will find me and they will want it. Like somehow the universe will know and these people will find me somehow, which is, I think that like I can be guilty of that one. But I also think that people think they're competing on product and generally we're not. I know in my industry, say yarn dyeing and selling hand dyed yarns, most of the dyers out there are selling really great yarn. So I'm not competing. I'm not trying to say like my yarn's better than their yarn. We're not competing on like I have a better product than you do if we're a small business. Usually it's about a whole lot of other things. So just building an amazing product isn't going to be enough. And I think that's why, because we're not competing on an amazing product. And then
Can
we
I
have,
interrupt?
oh, yeah, go ahead.
Are you thinking that the other aspects are community? But what are some of the other aspects?
So, what I think is that I can have an amazing product and 10 other people can have an amazing product and we're all selling the same thing, but my thing is going to resonate with a different audience. And so, I think that the things that we're competing on, and I say that with air quotes because I don't really think we need to compete. I just think we need to show our value to people so
Yes.
that they want to purchase from us, but it's on the customer service we provide. It's on how we present ourselves in our product. It's on leaning into who we are and the aesthetic that we enjoy because we cannot serve everybody. So we just need to
Right.
serve this really niche group of people. And by niche, that could still be thousands and thousands of people. The yarn I dye does not look like the yarn that my really good friend dyes. And we both have almost identical businesses, subscription businesses,
Mm.
yarn selling normal yarn, but what she dyes is different. The way she dyes is different. The way it looks is different. Her yarn bases are different. Everything about how she presents her subscription is different. Her yarn is wonderful. I love it. I work with it. I would recommend it to people. I'm not competing with her on the amazingness of her yarn. You know what I mean? It's not why
Right.
I have my customers. Isn't because I'm better than somebody else.
I like to compare it to an accountant.
Mhm.
You would never expect one accountant to serve all the taxpayers in the United States. You're gonna have you're right. You're gonna have different accountants Yes, maybe they'll do things slightly differently, but they're gonna do your taxes if they're
Right.
licensed accountants.
Yeah.
And I'm not denigrating our products to the level of tech services, but in other words, there's room for everyone.
Yes.
There really is room for everyone, and now I do think it's interesting to look at I'm thinking of the big corporate brands. In our industry, we have Wool and the Gang, we have
Mhm.
Loopy Mango, and I know that that's different from what you do, but I will often look at their emails and their messages, and I subscribe to their email newsletters, and I say, okay, what makes me click?
Mhm.
And honestly, like what doesn't really, what do I just scroll past? And I think it's a really good tool for us small business owners to analyze the way that other
Yeah.
people are running their sales.
Yeah, and it
Uh,
would be interesting to know if one of them sent emails and the other didn't, because they might both have really great products that people want and need and love, but one person, if they're emailing and posting and active in different places and the other isn't, who's probably going to get more interaction with customers, right? The
yeah.
one that's actually selling and telling people about their product. So it's not about the amazing product, it's about all the other
Yeah.
things we do.
Yeah.
But so that's if you build it, they will come. Like, it's not enough to just have a great product. The quality is top notch, and they just think, "Well, I'm going to put it out there and people will find me." And then third is if you found yourself putting it out there and just saying, new product just dropped, and then that's it. You walk away, but you're not telling people how that fits into their life. You're not giving them any sort of visual or there's no like stimulus there. It's almost like a so what moment. Okay, now what? What would you like me to do with that information? And then the fourth one is that, and this is something that you've already brought up, is only mentioning it once and then never talking about it again. You're like, okay, I did it. I did a thing. I told them it was there. And then and then now we run away and hide in a cave. Don't look at me. I told you it was there. Now don't look at me. And to your point, I think that they may not have seen it. They may have missed it. They were busy that week. They didn't open that email. They weren't on social media. It just went right through their feed and they didn't see it. And so we can't just talk about it once. We have to repeatedly encourage nicely our audience to understand that we have products available.
And a funny anecdote about that, in January, I released a kit and I collaborated with an indie dyer and with a stitch marker artist and also with a sewist who made the project bags. And I did a whole launch, multi components, many emails. And I would say a week into the launch, the woman who had done the stitch markers for me, who's a good friend, she said, which kit did those stitch markers go in again? And I thought, oh my gosh, we're collaborating.
Yeah.
We did a YouTube video together about the project, and she didn't remember. And
Yep.
she is an intelligent, like C-level, sweet businesswoman, but people just, we don't remember.
Yes.
So I thought, I always remember that. I say, okay, if she didn't remember, then any one of my customers, it can't be, expected to remember either.
It's true. I've had, I would say every single time I do a big release of something that things that I do yearly that people anticipate and they know are coming, I do a whole launch campaign. Like there's emails, there's multiple emails, sometimes multiple emails a day. There's a wait list just to have the opportunity to pre-order. There's so many emails and communicative things that I will do for my audience so that they don't miss it because I know they would actually be quite upset if they really wanted it and missed it because I didn't tell them enough, right? So I'll do this whole thing and it'll last like weeks and then it'll be over. And then maybe like I won't have hit an exact number that I wanted to hit, right? And 100% of the time, there will be emails from people saying, "Hey, when are you going to release that thing?" And
Yeah.
this isn't like it's not their job to know by any means, but it's funny because obviously we do all this work in advance, but it goes back to the point of we can say it, but not everybody is going to hear it because we are not top of mind, right? People are out there living their lives and we are not special. They're not thinking about us all day long.
And it's not malicious.
No.
It's we just again think about your own email inbox, how many hundreds of emails you have in there. And even people who are sometimes dear friends, we don't respond to right away. And
Yep,
yes.
exactly. So I just want to say if you fall into any of those categories, don't feel bad because you have many and much opportunity to do things a little bit differently. So now I want to talk about asking for the sales. How do we do it? Where do we do it? Why do we do it? What do we do when we get rejected? Let's dive into all of that nitty-gritty stuff that I think this is why people don't ask because they're afraid of what's going to happen after they do.
Yeah, and people, I think you've heard this old saw many times, people are more afraid of public speaking than of dying, and it's that fear of rejection. So, I am so appreciative of the world we live in today where you can ask for the sale and not be face to face with someone, and
Mhm.
that is an effective sales technique. And one thing that I try to do when I'm really in launch mode, I'm like, "Okay, I have a number in mind, right?
Mhm.
Say I want to sell 20 of these." Every morning, I wake up and I ask myself, "Okay, how am I going to ask for the sale today?" And then I try to do it. I call it eating a frog,
Oh,
like,
yeah, eat the frog.
right? Eating your frog, doing the thing that you don't want to do
Mhm.
as early as possible because I'm a morning person. I don't get up very early. I'm not an annoying morning person, I don't think, but I do like to I have my most energy in the morning. So, if that means doing my hair and makeup because I'm going to be on the camera and doing a quick reel and asking for the sale and posting it, then I'm done. If it's something that's bigger, I will admit sometimes I will take a nap because it takes so much out of me. And I just think, oh my gosh, let's say I did a webinar or something like that. Then I would often take a nap because I'm like, I don't want to know if people are buying or not. You know,
Yeah,
I
so you have to, like,
it just
mentally shut down.
it yes, and as time has gone on, like you said, after you've done it the first 100 times, your courage has led to confidence and your success has led to confidence. But I compare it to seeing yourself on camera or hearing your voice.
Mhm.
First time, it always seems strange, and you may think, "I'm never going to be comfortable doing this." And then after you've just done it for so many times, it looks so natural that people will say to you, you're such a natural salesperson, and please tell Cheryl about that because she'll be so proud of you, and so will I."
Truth. It's true. I do not like showing up on camera. It's not my favorite thing to do. I definitely don't like to do any sort of public speaking, not my favorite thing to do at all. And I struggle with a lot of anxiety, a lot of anxiety. If I'm doing something in person or recorded or anything that's going to be recorded, I just don't watch it back because I can obsess over it and I worry about how it's going to sound. And but if I know once it's done, I never have to think about it ever again and it's just gone out of my life. I don't know if that's the best strategy, but you know what? The one that gets you to do the thing is the best strategy, right?
Yes.
So I'm like, you know
Yes.
what? That's how I do it if I have to be live. And for things that aren't live, I just schedule a lot of stuff because I know on the day I might come up with a million reasons why I shouldn't do it. Oh, I just sent them an email. Oh, I don't know. Like someone said something weird and now it's all in my head. And there's all kinds of reasons like during the like a launch or during something. But if I can schedule it when I'm not in the middle of it, it feels very different. And so my logical brain handles that and my emotional brain isn't involved. And then when it's happening, I can be as emotional as I want because I've already scheduled it and it's just going to happen. It's out of my hands now.
Good, especially for, Black Friday, Cyber Monday, if that's something that in your business you do a large push for that.
Mhm.
I start in September building up the email list, and then in October, I try to have all of the emails, believe it or not, written, all the graphics, everything in
Yeah.
October. Because then, like you said, you have that distance and you're not so emotional wrapped up in the holidays, both for personal and business
Yes.
activities.
Yeah, it's too much. And you might go, oh, shoot, should I really send this email? My customers are already getting so many emails. I don't want to overwhelm them. I don't want to be this. I don't want to be that. But when you can take all of those fears and that's like negative self talk out of it because you're doing it way in advance and then just commit, like, I'm not going to go in and undo what I've done, because now you've already done the work. So it would be a real shame if you went in and canceled it all. So I feel like usually if I schedule, it'll happen because I don't have to think or feel about it so I don't get stressed out. But so what do you think about if somebody is very nervous about selling their product and asking people to come buy it? What do you think is the easiest way to get started? Do you think it's
Yeah.
doing a live video? Do you think it's doing a social media post? Do you think it's sending an email? What do you think?
I think the best way is to find a bestie, someone in your life, a sister, a friend who is your ride or die, and having a phone call with that person or maybe a Zoom call and recording it. And that person's words and questions resonate with you. Because if the situation were flipped and your sister or bestie asked you to be there for her, you would be so supportive and such a cheerleader. And so the first thing I would do is practice receiving that goodness. If you already have repeat customers who send you emails or say to you, I love this so much. Thank you so much. I'm sure you get this, but I get those thank you emails. I treasure them. I put them in a little folder and I name that folder, read these when you're feeling unsure of yourself.
Yes.
So I store up all of that positive energy and I start small. I wouldn't do a video. I would start with someone that I love. Now, and if you do a live video, I often speak into the camera as though I am speaking to my sister or my bestie, just that one person and making that connection.
I love that.
Yeah,
I
so
love that.
because
That makes a lot of
that's really
sense.
what we're doing, right? Is making the
Mhm.
connection.
Yeah.
Um,
I love that,
yeah.
and I like, mentally put a pin in something you said, and it was saving those kind words and those kind emails and reading them later. Something I learned a while back, and it was surprising to me, and then once I let it sink in, I was like, "Oh, that makes so much sense," is that our caveman brain, it takes in information, and then it decides what to do with it. It sorts it into a couple of categories, and generally, what happens is that the negative things, because our caveman brain doesn't necessarily know what's going to actually kill us or be dangerous to us. So it takes those negative things and it puts a higher emphasis on it because that's the danger. That's the bad that we have to like look for and watch out and be careful of. And the good things, it goes, oh, that's nice. And then poofs it right out of our head off into the ether because it's not going to help us stay alive. And so I think that we need to work harder to put less emphasis on the bad and more emphasis on the good because it isn't going to happen naturally. And I think most people would probably resonate with that. Oh, yeah. Like when somebody gives me a compliment, I just, oh, yeah, thanks. Either they don't really mean it or it's not that impactful. But if somebody says, oh, what happened to your hair today? Like you will hold on to that for 100 years, right? Every day you'd be like, "Oh, my
Yes,
I have the worst hair in the world." So I feel like that's one thing. And then the other thing that goes right along with this, and I have a blog about it and I will link to it in the show notes. I also did a whole email series about it, but it is that feelings aren't facts. And when we hear something and we start telling ourselves that story over and over again, what happens is that our brain naturally looks for things to prove us right. So if you're afraid of selling and you send out an email and somebody says to you, "Oh, I'm unsubscribing. You send way too many emails. Take me off your list." Which, like, spoiler alert, probably will happen. Like, that happens and it's okay. But you hear that and then you go, see, I was afraid of it. I knew it. I get a lot of emails. I don't like them when they show up in my inbox. I'm bothering people. They don't want to see this from me. We're telling ourselves this story over and over again. One person says, you send too many emails. And then our brains go, oh, see, I knew I was right. I knew it. I'm never doing this again. And all the people that say I should be doing X, Y, and Z, they're wrong because my customers, and it's, no, it was one person. All the other people that open your emails, you can look and see your open rate. You can see they're reading them, they're enjoying them most likely if they're opening them. We just that poof right out of our brain, gone. That's not
that's
helping
right.
us.
And I just want to speak to people who are brand new starting their businesses. Your first 100 people on your email list, of course, you're going to notice.
Mhm.
And you might be tempted to check who's staying and who's going. And each heart and each comment on your posts are going to be more critical. But if you can just stick it through, I think those first 1,000 people on your list is absolutely the hardest.
Yeah.
And I think once you get to 1,000, you have a little bit more road under your car and it stops meaning quite so much.
Yeah.
Um, because after all, if you have 100 people on your list, then and one person leaves, that's 1% of your list. That sounds like a lot. But if it's 1,000, then what is it? Zero point 0.1? But it's not much. And then we talk about small businesses, but you can make millions and millions of dollars and be a small business,
Mhm.
and you will have millions of people on your email list eventually, if that's the way you decide to go. And you couldn't possibly have the bandwidth to worry about these individual things anymore. Um,
Yes. That
so
is so true. Oh my goodness. And I want to circle back to something you said earlier because now that we're talking about email lists, I have some big feelings about email lists and how other people feel about email lists as small business owners. So I will put it out there first that I think an email list is the single biggest and best thing that anybody can do for their business, no matter what size business you have, but particularly small businesses because it's the one thing you own your list. It separate from the platform that your list is on. You will always own those email addresses, and you can always move it to another platform. You can always do other things with it, and you have control over whether it shows up in somebody's inbox or not. You can't control if they open it, but it's not dependent on if an algorithm changes or a social media website goes down or anything. Your business can go on if you own an email list. And it gives you a lot more flexibility in how you talk to them, what you want to say to them, like all the things. So I just want to put that out there that I think that's the number one thing that anybody should be doing. But I get so much pushback on that because people don't want to bother anybody on their list. I don't want to bother them. And I think part of it stems from we're all on email lists as consumers and just humans, right? And we get emails and we're like, oh, I get so many emails. It's so annoying. And it is, right? That's valid. However, some of the emails I get, I actually really do want. I really do want them. And generally, those tend to be the ones that are from smaller businesses that I have an actual connection with versus these like really big companies that are just like hitting me 3 times a day and I'm not their target audience and I'm just too lazy to go and unsubscribe.
those are two very different beasts.
Yes.
And so I think we feel as small business owners that we're instantly equated with Kohl's or Joanne Fabrics. That
Yes.
instantly people will just put us in the promotions folder and unsubscribe. But they're two completely different animals.
They are. They're two completely different animals. And if somebody signs up for your email list, there's a very good chance that they actually want to hear from you. And it would almost be more weird to not email them after they've signed up because it's just, what are we doing here? I went and proactively was like, hey, please email me. And then you were like, no, I won't do it. You just, when you think about it like that, right? When you put it into that perspective, it's, oh, yeah, that kind of makes sense. But I wanted to talk about the unsubscribes because what happens is people then go, okay, fine, you got me. I'm convinced. I'm going to start emailing. And then the unsubscribes happen. And then we do that whole cognitive bias thing where our brain says 10 people unsubscribed. Clearly, you were wrong. I was right. We proved ourselves what we believed correct. And here's the thing, you are going to get unsubscribes. It's 100% going to happen every single time you send an email, all the time. There are unsubscribe rates that you can look at to see if your unsubscribe rate is normal. And if it is, you can look at that and just move on with your day. We don't need to obsess about it. But I think if we just, one, accept that it's 100% part of life and it is going to happen. And two, if we know our numbers and we can accept that we're in the normal range, then we're okay. And then three, we're not putting our story on those people who have unsubscribed. We're not projecting our emotions. I know they unsubscribed because I was bothering them. I was sending too many emails. My product's no good. They don't like me. I'm being rejected. Like all of these feelings, nobody said that to you. You know what I mean? No one, okay, maybe somebody said, I got too many emails. Maybe. I'll give you that. But for the most part, like nobody is most likely like saying all of these things. We're saying them to ourselves and we can
Yes.
stop that. But then there's 2 things that I feel like are really important for us to understand. One is that when we tell ourselves this, we suddenly become a victim. There's nothing we can do about it. We can do nothing about everybody hates me, everybody hates my product, they don't wanna hear from me, they're unsubscribing, that emails just really aren't gonna work, and now I can do nothing. And that does not serve you. Being in a place where you think you can literally do nothing and there's no path forward does not help you in any capacity. And then 2, again, we have to stop putting our own fears on our customers. A customer may unsubscribe because they no longer use that product. Like for me, right? Maybe my customer was no longer uses yarn. They picked it up. They thought it was going to be a great hobby for them. They got real excited as we do. And then 3 months later, they went, they found diamond painting and now they don't want to use yarn anymore. You know what I mean? Like I do that with things all the time.
I have 2 tips for the email list. One, and you touched on this, is to know your numbers. So every month or so, I will take a look at my unsubscribe rate, but I'll also take a look at the growth rate. If people
Mhm.
are coming into your list, then
Yep.
that speaks volumes more than if they're leaving.
Yep.
And the open rates and the click-through rates. So if someone's opened it and then they've gone ahead and clicked to your, website. And every email you send should have a click to your website, by the way.
Yeah, some sort of call to action, right? Something to get them to
Yes,
take action. Yes.
if it's sensible. I have customers, not many, but I have customers who are current customers who have unsubscribed from my marketing emails.
Mhm.
So it doesn't necessarily even mean that they don't like your product. They could continue to purchase from you. Then quarterly, I go through my email list and I actually clean it up and I suppress people. So I'm unsubscribing them on purpose. But the rule for me is if I have sent them 20 emails and they haven't opened anything in the last 6 months and they've been on the list long enough
Mhm.
to have all that data, they'll say, no, thank you. And I don't delete them, but I just put them on mute.
Mhm.
And and if I wanted to reactivate them, I could, but because a lot of these email platforms you pay per person, you want to have a nice list where everyone who's on the list is enjoying your emails.
Correct. Yes. Absolutely. And when that is happening, you have a better deliverability of your emails. When you have a better open rate, you're just going to be able to deliver and not end up in the spam folder and all of these things too. So it's always a good idea to scrub your list. I 100% agree with that. And like you were saying, one thing that I do is if I know I'm going to be sending out a lot of emails on something specific, a launch of some sort, and I'm sending a lot of emails and it might not be applicable to everybody, I give them a button that says, hey, if you don't want this email about this thing, click here and I won't email you about this anymore for the next 2 weeks. And then that way it gives them an option of, okay, I'm not going to buy this item. I know I'm not going to buy it. I don't want to hear about it. And then they don't unsubscribe. And so what I started doing early on is because it's a story we tell ourselves about why people are leaving our list, but we don't actually know. So that story really could be anything. We're picking the bad one, right? We're picking whatever it is. We can just pick something else. I have by no means a massive list, but there's many thousands of people on my email list. And so I could send an email and get 40 people that unsubscribe. And that could kill my feelings, but instead what I tell myself is this: my products are so good. They're so good that these people that left, they would just give me every single dollar they make. And it would be detrimental to their life if they bought every single product I ever sent out in an email. It's so enticing and it's so good that to preserve their
Their
household,
financial
yeah,
stability,
and to not fight with their partner because they keep bringing all this yarn in because they can't resist it. It's so good that they had to unsubscribe. And why can't that be true? Like, why can't that be the truth? We don't know. I'm sure it isn't for everybody, but I'm also sure that the bad things aren't true for everybody either. Why not just tell ourselves that we're awesome instead of telling ourselves the opposite? That's how I see that. But I love email because you can start small. You can work up to the big click here button And it allows you to also nurture customers and do some things that aren't selling as well. So it really gives a balance and it connects you to your customers in a way that maybe other things can't. But I also think that do the thing that's gonna get the job done. Like, where you're most comfortable is where you should start. If that's social media, if that's email, if that's just ripping off the Band-Aid and getting on a Facebook Live, if that's calling a friend and easing into a conversation about your product, if it's talking in the mirror about your product, just so that you get comfortable, that's all valid. But the one thing that won't serve you is telling yourself that you can't do it and you shouldn't do it and it's bothering people because you can't grow a business that way.
I agree. And I would add that after you've done the thing, you've listened to this podcast, you've been really inspired, and you say, okay, I'm doing the thing. I want you to take a break and then I want you to do the thing again tomorrow.
Yes.
And that's like the second day. It's like, oh, are you kidding me? I did this yesterday. But it can be so simple. And when we talk about email marketing, you don't have to get lost in the weeds of formatting and figuring out a whole new platform and that kind of thing. You can do a text based email and write it as if you're writing to your best friend and just say, hey, I just wanted to let you know that I've designed this thing and here's the link. And then you can always learn to make pretty buttons and graphics and gifts and all the
Those are
things.
usually the best. Those
You know,
text-based emails,
they convert.
they're the best, I think, with less pictures, less fancy. And we always want to talk to our audience like we're talking to our friends because they are our friends in a lot of ways, right?
Yes.
Because we're
Yes.
small businesses. Again, like I'm going to put on my small business t shirt. We know our customers, like we interact with them. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, we're not being that manipulative, like, who cares if you need it? Buy my thing anyway. Like, we're giving them the opportunity to see what we have and how it fits into their life. And we're just letting them know it's here and this is where they can get it and how they can get it because we care about them and we want to make their life easier and we don't want them to miss it and we don't want them to struggle to find it.
Right.
We're helping. We are helping them. And they signed up or they followed us or however they came into our world. If they're still there, there's a chance they want to hear from you. If they liked your Facebook page, if they follow you on Instagram, if they're signed up for your emails, if they're still there, they're there for a reason.
And they could be there for a year.
Mhm.
They could be there for many years. And it's possible that they'll never buy, but they're still getting value from you. Or they could eventually say, okay, yeah, I'm going to put my money here.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, sometimes you just really never know.
And if you are concerned that you are feeling like I don't want to just be selling all the time, right? There is a saying, and it's been around for a long time, serve before you sell. If you are very concerned that you don't want to be always asking, you can implement a system for yourself where you say, okay, I am going to give value 3 times before I ask for anything back. I'm going to, I don't know, give or that could be something funny. I'm going to make somebody smile. Can be anything. Value can really be anything that your audience appreciates before you ask for the sale. And that's valid too. And that's something you can look at and monitor and say, okay, every third email, I'm going to ask for a sale. Every third social media post, like whatever it is, you can balance that. So you have control over how you do it.
Yeah, and then you can play with asking for the sale more often. So I had heard back when we first met, I think the saying was serve like maybe 4 emails and give free content and do all this and then ask for the sale.
Mhm.
And I think things have changed because people's attention spans are so fractured that I would even flip it on its side now and I would say yes, absolutely. Give freebies and especially on social media, that's social.
Yeah.
So it's not a sales ad, it's not like a billboard,
Right.
right? With email or a sales channel, it's completely appropriate to ask for the sale more often than not.
Yeah.
And so getting used to that might take a little bit of time. But yeah, and let me preface this by saying I don't do this consistently, but I have thought about, okay, am I asking for the sale every day in some
Mhm.
way?
Yeah.
Yeah, like taking a vitamin.
I love that. Carrie, I think this has been such a good conversation. I could just talk forever about this.
It's been a lovely framework, and yeah, I really hope that your listeners get some thinking points and some value out of it. I know
I
I
agree.
have. Talking about it with you, I've learned so much, and I love to hear how another business owner thinks about things because we can be very isolated. So it's so important to get that connection to other people who have been in the trenches.
I couldn't agree more. These conversations remind us that we're not alone in this journey. Carrie, I'm so grateful for your insight today, and I know our listeners are going to walk away with so much to think about.
Yeah,
Thank you. This has been wonderful.
It really has. And for those of you listening, if this conversation resonated with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Don't forget to connect with us online, share your biggest takeaway, and of course, subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Indie Made Business. If you have a business bestie who could benefit from today's conversation, I'd love for you to share the link with them. Remember, it's all about community over competition. We rise by lifting each other up, and when we support one another, we all grow stronger and create something truly amazing together. For more resources and to connect with me online, visit the Indie Made Business website. You'll find the link in the show notes. And I can't wait to continue supporting you on your business journey. See you next time.